Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us again on another episode of Buddies Off the Leash. Today, we're here with our in-house trainer, Brooke Young. And Brooke is here today to talk about all things training and all tips to learn about when having a new dog. So, Brooke, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got involved with Buddies?
I actually got involved with Buddies because I wanted to start fostering. And so I started as a foster. And then, after helping a couple dogs, I just kind of started giving a couple tips, and you found out that I was a trainer, and we started working together after that.
And that was it. You're welcome. Now you're stuck with me. So how did you get involved in dog training from the beginning?
It was a career switch for me, and it was something that I had been interested in doing basically my whole life. When I was a kid, I used to train my own family dogs, how to do stuff, and just like have fun with tricks and things like that. And then after I switched careers, I thought, why don't I just give this a shot and see if I can turn kind of a hobby into something that I actually like really enjoy doing for work.
And what did you do before dog training?
I was a teacher of human children.
So you enjoy teaching the furry children a little bit better, that's all.
Yeah, I do enjoy both. But actually dog training involves a lot of teaching humans how to communicate with their dog friends.
We always say that. We always say that when we're training a dog, in essence, you're sometimes training the owners a little bit more sometimes than the dog.
Definitely.
So that's awesome. So what are some of the biggest challenges that you have faced when training not just Buddies fosters, but just dogs in general?
The consistency with the people that they're working with. I think with our really busy lives and just how many things we have going on as people, sometimes it's always hard to find the time and the consistency to really help your dog adjust to their new life in your house, especially with new dogs. They're learning what your routines are and what they're supposed to be doing, what's okay to do and what's not okay to do. And so I think for me, it's getting people to be consistent with the training. Training doesn't happen just, once a week, for an hour. It happens over the course of their lives.
It really is. I mean, we compare it often to having children because children need kind of the same things that dogs need. They need consistency. They need structure. They need to know what to expect every day. Otherwise, it can cause confusion and they can be, they can get scared from not knowing what's going to happen next, So having that consistency really does set them up for success.
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. Why is training early on, we could say even when a dog is a puppy or early on when getting an adult dog right from the get-go? Why do you think that that's so important?
I think that starting early with training, whether you're starting with a puppy or a new dog that's an adult dog in your home, is so important because you're setting up expectations, right? And the clearer your communication is with that dog, the easier of a time they're going to have following those expectations, right? So if you're kind of letting things go early on or not telling them what to do early on, then they're going to get used to that routine. And so they're not going to be, and then once you try to uphold some rules or boundaries later on, they're going to be confused about why is this happening now?
Yeah, when this wasn't the way it was from when I first arrived here. I can say that I am a huge, I'm definitely to blame for that. Our new dog, Peter, is, he's a great boy, but he definitely needs more consistency, and I need to work better on that. We're having some struggles with him waking up in the middle of the night because he just wants to go downstairs and get a treat. Well, now we've rewarded that behavior because he goes downstairs and sits in front of the treat jar at 1 o'clock in the morning. But the way to get him to go to bed was to give him a treat. So now every day, 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, he's downstairs in front of the treat jar because he's like, I'm going to get a snack. But then he goes right back to bed.
Yep.
So it's definitely hard because we have to break that behavior.
Right.
So I'm definitely be calling you for some advice on that. So what do you think some things that people should start doing right away when a dog comes into their home?
Whether you are adopting a puppy or an older dog, I think something that's really important for new dog owners is honestly to let the dogs decompress. A lot of people make the mistake of trying to do too much too quickly. And while training early is important. You have to let the dog get used to their new surroundings, right? Dogs don't speak English. We can train them on certain commands, sure, but they don't speak English. And so we can't explain to them what's going on. We can explain with our actions. And so giving them time to observe, get used to their environment without trying to introduce them to a bunch of new people that aren't going to be living with them, or putting them in situations with your current animals, unsupervised, or feeding them all together at the same time. You want to do things really gradually with dogs because they need time to really get used to it and not be scared by all of this new stuff coming at them all at once.
Yeah, that's one thing that we really stress in the rescue, especially for the fosters, when you're taking a new dog, a new foster into your home, to give them that decompression time, because it really works. It really has been studied over the past few years in the rescue community that giving dogs that separate space, that quiet place, to just get used to their surroundings, like you said, because it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
Some of these dogs are coming right off the shelter floor when we save them, and they're then going on a truck to be transported, or they're coming from a local shelter and going into a new environment. And like you said, there could be children, there could be other animals there, and that's confusing and scary for them. So giving them that time away from everybody will set them up for success, because, we know that dogs act out when they're fearful. Not so much aggression, but when they're fearful, because that's their only way of communicating with us that they're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So giving them that time, that crate time, that area that's separate from all the other animals, definitely gives them a chance to unwind. And then, like you said, then start working on those routines, and then start working on the consistency and the commands. I think that's great. And that's one of the things that we actually, insist on when people foster for the organization, because we've seen so much success with it.
Yeah. You brought up something that's also really important, which the routine aspect of things is incredibly important for dogs. It's predictable, right? You want to be a predictable person.
Well, yeah, because that, if a dog knows when this happens, this is what the outcome's going to be. They know what to expect. And if you're consistent and do that with routine, that's going to continue on that. And then they know what to expect, and they're more comfortable with that, because like we said, they're like kids. They do better with routine. They do better with consistency. So give us your best tips and training when it comes to crate training, leash behavior, and basic commands.
One of the things I tell a lot of my clients and the people that I'm working with is dogs repeat behaviors that get them attention.
Okay.
And so when you're seeing kind of negative behaviors from your dog, or behaviors that you don't want to see, a lot of the best things that you can do is either ignore them or redirect their behavior into doing something that you want them to do, and then reward the behaviors that you like. So, if your dog's a little bit on the wild side, right, you're going to ignore the behaviors that you don't want to see, and then ask them to do something like a sit or a lay down, and then reward that behavior. So I like that he just laid down on the couch, so I'm going to give him a nice reward for doing that, right? Crate training.
Yeah.
Crate training is something that a lot of people, if they haven't used that technique before, it can feel a little scary, like, oh, I'm putting my dog in jail or in this cage. But really, crates are a fantastic tool, especially for a new dog in the home. One, if you train it properly, it gives them a chance to have a nice den-like space for them to relax in.
Dogs are den animals.
Yes. It also helps you keep them safe. They're not going to get into any food that they're not supposed to have that could be dangerous for them. They don't rip up your furniture if they're left unattended, and they have this nice safe space to go to. And so crate training is really important for the beginning stages of a dog getting used to your 100%. Space.
And also, sometimes people use crates as a form of punishment. And we don't want that. We want crates to be a place where they go to feel safe. If they pee on the carpet, you don't want to shove them in the crate and make them feel bad about it.
Right.
Because that's where you want them to go, to where they're comfortable and they're safe. So that should be a place where you can reward them.
Yes. I like to equate it to a child's bedroom, right? So if they feel safe in that room, right, that's where they're going to spend some time relaxing in there, not as a form of punishment.
Absolutely. My name is Julie Starr, and I am the founder and president of Buddy's Second Chance Rescue here in Buffalo, New York. And today we're here because we have a transport of dogs coming in that we saved from being euthanized in rural shelters in Georgia. This moment's so important for the dogs that we are taking because without our foster home stepping up and saving these dogs, we don't know what would have happened to them. Unfortunately, they would have ended up in probably overcrowded shelters and may not have had a chance to get out and have their second chance at the life that they deserve. So these transport missions are so important to our mission, Save One Until There Are None, because this is our step forward towards getting dogs out of high-kill shelters all across the country. Community support is so important for helping us with our transports. We do something called crate sponsors, which we do for every Georgia transport, which means for $50, you can sponsor helping a dog get transported here from the shelter in Georgia, because we do pay a transport company to bring the dogs up so we know that they're safe and well cared for. So anytime that we do a transport, you can go on and you can sponsor a dog. We'll mention you in our live video, and then you'll also get an update from the foster after the dog has come into the home and been settled, and you'll get an update with pictures and how that pup is doing. Once the dogs come into the rescue, we make sure that they have their shots, they get microchipped, they're spayed or neutered, and the foster homes then start working on things like potty training, crate training, walking on a leash correctly, being able to be integrated into a home, working well with other dogs. This will set the dogs up for success when they are eventually adopted. So Brooke, as we said, you really work a lot with the dogs inside our organization. We're so lucky to have you. You really have been a godsend to helping us and setting a lot of our dogs up for success. What would you say how important it is to have that support for our fosters to setting our foster dogs up for success for when they go into their adoptive homes?
The fosters are really an integral piece of this organization because one, it's potentially maybe the first home experience that some of these dogs have had. They're coming from a shelter experience. So this is really like they're learning what home life is. And so those fosters that are working with these dogs are giving the dogs an impression of what that's like. And they're also the first people that are kind of instilling some of these training techniques with these dogs. And so the fosters are the ones that are really kind of putting that first impression in for these dogs and setting them up for success for their future forever home.
Absolutely. And as soon as they come into the home and the fosters start working on things like potty training, crate training, leash walking, obviously that's going to make it a step easier for when they are adopted, and they're already going to have those tools under their belt that the adopters can then carry out with them also.
I think the fosters also have a really good insight on a dog's personality and certain behaviors that they're really good at or kind of struggling with. And so passing that information along to the adopters is really important to set the dog up for success.
And would you agree that not all dogs learn the same, just like people?
Yes.
So some dogs learn things this way, some dogs learn things this way, and you, as yourself, you have to be able to adjust that. And you have to know, basing off meeting that dog, which way that dog's going to learn and how it's going to retain that information. And that's got to be tough sometimes on you too.
Yeah, it's definitely tough. I think that, just like you said, every dog is different. Some dogs are going to be motivated by certain things and some dogs aren't. Some dogs are coming in really fearful. Some dogs aren't, right? So you have to adjust your technique and also kind of your tone and the way you're presenting yourself to certain dogs. Some dogs are going to do really well with someone who's really kind of more authoritative and stern, and some dogs are going to do much better with someone who's a little bit softer and patient, and you really have to adjust your tone and how you're presenting yourself to that dog in order to kind of see where they're at.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great advice, 100%. So, Brooke, what we want you to do is teach us some tricks for whether it be fosters or people welcoming a new puppy or an adult dog into their home. And they're simple things that people should be starting with their dogs and that they should learn to do right away because they're very helpful for setting their dog up for success. So the first one would probably be crate training. What would you say, to someone who is trying to crate train their dog? What is some advice you would give them?
Crate training, you often want to start off on the slow side, right? You don't want to just shove your dog in the crate and expect them to be fine in there, right? And then it feels like a jail, which is exactly what we don't want it to feel like. We want it to feel like a bedroom. So there's a couple different things that I would do with my dog to get them used to crate training. So one would be dedicated sessions where I'm teaching them to go in and out of the crate. And oftentimes, you might see me treating Cruz right now because I want to reward him for, sitting nicely on the couch while we're doing this. And so same thing with the crate. I'm going to, lure him in with a treat. As soon as he's in the crate, I'm going to give him that treat and then I'm going to let him come right back out. And same thing, over time with repetition, you're going to see your dog going right into that crate automatically because they're excited about that treat.
They want that treat,
right?
yeah.
And you don't have to use food all the time. I know most dogs are motivated by food, right? But you could use play or praise or petting as a reward for doing what you want them to do. Cruz, please. Yes. Good boy.
And our favorite target word, yes.
Yes. So you might hear me saying yes.
Yep.
Yes is our marker word.
Yep.
Essentially, it means I've asked you to do something, and the moment that they do the thing you asked them to do, you can say yes, and it means a reward is coming. And so with crate training, I do that. I work on going in and out of the crate with them just so they get used to it. I also add things throughout the day. So not just a dedicated training session, but things that are going to help the dog feel comfortable in the crate, like feeding them their meals in the crate, right? Giving them a nice chew or a lick mat inside of the crate, leaving the crate door open and having treats in there that for them to find throughout the day. Putting a nice comfy bed or a blanket that smells like you in the crate could work for them too. So combining, throughout the day type train as you live type situations and a dedicated training session where you're teaching them to go in and out of the crate.
Yeah, and like you said, it doesn't have to be all at once. Do that a few times, then, dedicate some time at night when you're sitting down watching TV. Put the crate there. They go in the crate, drop the treat in, reward them. Yes, good job. And then a lot of times I would say the next step would be do that with the door shut, but not locked.
Yes.
So then they don't still feel trapped. And then, you work your way up. Taking those small steps can make them feel comfortable and not like they're being trapped. And like you said, a lot of our dogs come from the shelter. So you don't want to feel like they're being shoved back into a kennel because that's obviously very scary.
A lot. One big thing that sometimes people will do is they'll only put the dog in the crate when they leave. Right. And so something that happens with that is the dog will associate you leaving and them being in the crate. And sometimes that can cause some separation anxiety or some panic with dogs. And so like what you're saying, have them spend some time in the crate while you're just sitting watching TV, right? Make it a comfortable space for them both while you're home and while you're not home so that they can get used to it and they don't associate the crate with you being gone, right? They associate the crate with, hey, I can relax and nap in here. Dogs sleep a lot, and they need to, and so giving them a nice, relaxing place to take a nap is always going to be a good thing for them.
Do you suggest that if you have a dog who has some separation, to kind of take that slow when it does come to the point where you're leave for small amounts of time first, instead of being like, okay, I'm going to go work 8 hours and you're in the crate.
Right.
Start like maybe on the weekend and be like, I'm going to run to the store and come back. So then where they kind of are at with that training.
Yes.
So then if you've kind of reached that point where they're able to say, you don't want a dog hurting themselves either and trying to escape the crate.
Right.
So you want them to be able to be comfortable in there. So by doing those small breaks and leaving for a little bit at a time and coming back, you can see that your dog is obviously comfortable in there, and then if you can leave them for longer times. And obviously setting a camera up on the crate also is what I do.
Definitely.
So I can keep an eye to make sure that they're okay.
Yeah. That kind of goes along with any type of training that you're going to do with your dog. Exactly what you just said is breaking it down into baby steps, right? You always want to start with the easiest thing first. So asking your dog to just go in the crate and then get right out, right? That's the baby step we can do. And with any type of training, you always want to start with the smallest thing and build up from there.
Absolutely.
Make it more challenging as you go, as they get better at each of those smaller steps that precede it.
Excellent. Loose leash walking. Yes. I'm not going to lie, Brooke. I struggle hard with this.
Most people do.
My dogs are so bad on the leash. Not only do they pull, they can be reactive. I'm embarrassed to say it. I could use your help, as I'm sure a lot of other people watching this could use your help.
You are not alone.
Yeah.
Many people's dogs pull. Many people's dogs are reactive towards other dogs out on the street. Let's stick with just loose leash walking for now. I often will always have treats on me when I'm walking my dog, when I'm teaching my dog how to walk on a leash. Dogs, most of them, naturally walk faster than we do. Okay. And so it's common for them to want to be out in front of us, right? But the other thing about walking is sometimes that's the only time that your dog gets out and about in the world. We're going to work, we're going to the grocery store, we're going to see our friends. Your dog, that's the only time that they have to be out experiencing stuff, right? So you have to have a balance between, you know, letting them kind of have that time to sniff and
check things out.
Things out. But you also want to teach them how to walk with you rather than drag you down the street. And so one of the biggest things is, just like I was saying before, dogs repeat things that get them attention or get them what they want. If you allow your dog to pull and put tension on that leash and they pull you over to go sniff something or do what they want to do, they understand that pulling gets me what I want.
Okay.
Right? And so if you start really early on and say, okay, pulling, actually, as soon as we feel tension on the leash, we stop.
Okay.
Right? Then the dog's learning pulling does not get me what I want. Pulling gets me the opposite of what I wanted, which is to go sniff that thing.
Yeah.
Right? And so in addition to stopping or even potentially turning and walking the opposite direction with them, you can also reward when they're near you. Okay. So it's like, good things happen when I'm paying attention to my human, when I'm walking with them, treats rain down from the sky, right? And I still get to go sniff what I want because they're balancing these things, right? So my biggest thing is if they pull and they get to pull to what they want, they're going to keep pulling,
be rewarded for that.
Right? Mm-hmm. It's a built-in reward for them. And so if you just stop, wait for them to release tension on the leash and then continue on, it's a long process. You know, it takes a ton of consistency and doing it over and over and over again. Yeah. But this is something that allows your dog to learn that when they walk with you, good things happen. When they pull, nothing happens, right? Yeah. They don't get what they want.
100%. That's definitely something that I need to work on. And it's, you know, like you said, it's consistency and it takes a while, but I'm sure with those tips and tricks, like anybody can be able to pick it up. You just have to be patient too. A lot of training requires a lot of patience also.
Yeah. And the other thing is too, not biting off more than you can chew. Yeah. You don't necessarily have to do an hour-long walk just all the time, down the street. Right? Some of my neighbors kind of think I'm a little bit crazy because anytime I have a new foster dog or a puppy, I just go back and forth. I don't even walk around the street. We build up to those longer walks.
That makes sense.
Just like I said, you start with baby steps and then you build up to more challenging situations.
Okay.
Please come here. Please.
Ready? Okay, Brooke, one last thing. Can you tell us what you think that people get completely wrong about dogs?
Yeah, a big one is that dogs love affection anytime and all the time. Just like we said before, every dog is different. Some dogs love affection and they love to be kissed or hugged or smothered. But most dogs actually want some space, right? And so I'm not going to go up and pet any dog over the top of their head. That's really scary for them and actually has a lot of bites that happen when people do stuff like that. And so oftentimes, you know, a dog wants to smell you without you interacting with them at all. That's how they get their information. And so that's a big thing when you're greeting dogs or getting to know them for the first time. Let them just observe you. You don't need to go in and pet them and give them tons of affection.
It's not always about what we want. Sometimes it has to be about what's best for the dog.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much for all the tips and tricks today. I appreciate you being here. And Buddies appreciates you being a part of our organization, our rescue family.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, everybody, so much for joining into another episode of Buddies Off the Leash. We hope you enjoyed today's show with our friend Brooke. And We would love to know and hear from you on who you think we should have on the show. We want to talk about everything dogs here in Western New York. We want to talk about everything that people experience involving their dogs and how we can get more people involved. Make a comment, let us know who you'd like to see on the show. And if you'd like to make a donation to help us save more dogs, you can go right to our website, buddiesrescue.org, or the donation link will be in the caption.